if you look at the mountain from the base, you'll never get there, man. It's just not going to work. And the other like really, really harmful thing in special needs parenting is going, my God, this is my life for the next 50 years. That load is too big. And the other thing is like the gratitude part. So the three things were be grateful, take things one day at a time, and serve others, right? The thing you're trying to get away from is bitterness. Sadness is natural. Anger is natural. It comes, feel it, deal with it. If you leave it all in place or you ignore it and you don't address it, kind of the scaffolding that builds around you is bitterness, right? And you get kind of frozen in something that looks like I'm permanently angry, permanently sad, and I'm wallowing in the unfairness of it all. Gratitude and bitterness really struggle to occupy the same space at the same time. Like they're just hard. They're mutually exclusive thought patterns. So if you force gratitude in there, force it every day at the beginning, force it as many times as you can, keeps the bitterness away.
Today in the Dark Side of Elite podcast, we have Sean Patrick Hughes back during COVID-19. Enjoy.
This is the Dark Side of Elite. Let's go. Scott and I have been on potting like all day today.
I've been on this just talking to people from work. So this is really like, this is just a different meeting. I clicked a different link. And I'm going to click a different link for my 2:00 on
right.
This. I'm not going to move.
Bro,
so it's all the same.
That's crazy. Because it's all digital. You got all that stress. You get no real body language to a degree. Like a guy like you, like me, I was always telling Scott, he's like, I go, yeah, we used to do this like every day in the military. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, why can't the other guys on the team figure it out? And I'm like, well, not everybody does these things. I go, this is just kind of old hat. And I was like, actually, and it's great too, because I go, I used to have guys with cue cards write up the answers because the senior commanders would always ask you questions that A, made no sense, B, who knows who had the answer, but there's no way one person had the answer. So I go, I had like a team of 4 people that I'm sure at some point in time, you were one of them off camera at times, and they're just sliding you notes. And
we resorted to Webby,
right?
So Webby was my version. We went right to Webby, and like guy right 2 feet away from me is. You remember the Webby sound?
Yeah, they're texting you the answer on your screen, and meanwhile, this is the funny part about it is God forbid we put the subject matter expert up there to actually say it, but Scotty, you got like depending on what time frame it was, how you presented and things like that was a big part of your promotion. So like if you couldn't pull these things off and look like you knew what you were talking about, which I've already told the world, I had no idea what I was talking about, but I was smart enough to get the smart guys with the cue cards and I would just do it. And then everybody was happy. And then of course you'd run into the guy that hadn't figured out the game or the girl. In our case, it was usually the guy. And you were like, oh, they didn't get the Webby game or the cue. Nobody briefed them on how to do it. Poor bastard.
Lieutenant Riggins, why don't you come back when you're ready for this briefing?
Correct. Lieutenant Riggins, are you going to bullshit your way through the whole thing?
The number one difference between the military and corporate, and it's not an easier or harder than thing. It's like I had gotten multiple times from my boss's boss in the military, Lieutenant or even Lieutenant Commander Hughes. Why don't you come back when you've got the answers to the questions the skipper's asking? Clearly, you don't have them. And the meeting would end 5 minutes in. Like, right. Roger that, sir. Like, check.
Because of the rank structure, and we kind of all know each other's, we'll call it educational backgrounds, and eventually we know some backstory. There's just people right away, and you accept it, and you're like, okay, I got to work around this. Because, like, as a leader, if you give a task, and it's simple, but it can't be done in an efficient manner of which you need it, what ends up happening is you just do it. And so they're not learning, you're working double or triple, and you've just accepted it, and you failed at your mission of leadership to grow and mentor so that they can do the task. And you see this all the time in the military, and that's okay. I mean, we get it. But what got me now in the civilian sector is when you have high credentials and high things, and maybe your net worth threw me for a loop. But I'm guessing you've seen a little of both, right? I mean,
yeah, I think a part of it is generational. And I think about like I've written a little bit about this. My freshman year at Annapolis was the first year they issued computers that had an Ethernet connection. So that means that I am, and I don't like not the literally thing. I am literally the line in the sand for people that went through service academies that had internet access the entirety of their 4-year career there. So if you think about that, anybody older than 43 did not. Anybody that's like 45 or 46 went their college career without access to internet. And so if you just think about like the difference between velocity of technology usage and it being foundational to how you learned, like there's an age thing. And I think we remember that from our time in, like it was really bad. In the Navy, you call the skipper the old man. It's just a term. It's a term of affection.
It's a good term, like, yeah.
And it's funny because like the old man is now younger than I was. Well, what I am now, like I'm now older than the old man, which is kind of funny to me.
That's weird to think about.
Like the old man's never. You send anything to the old man to technology wise outside of like one or two of the common skippers you and I had that were just outliers, tinkerers, right? So they were pretty good. But any of the other guys were helpless. It was like the old man's never going to be able to figure this out. Somebody go handle. They go, and he has a handler. In the corporate world, when I was on Wall Street, that was really similar because you had like the two guys that the two biggest producers at the firm that I was at looked like they ought to have been in the balcony for the Muppet Show, and so they were down in the corner office and they sat there staring at like pieces of paper and one giant stock ticker thing, and they were screaming at each other the whole time. Like they had a whole army of handlers.
I was thinking the guys in Trading Places.
Yeah, I actually called one of them Mortimer one time, and he didn't get it. It was pretty funny. But like in the tech world, the not being tech savvy, like I work for a Silicon Valley firm and a big one, and not being tech savvy there is like it's a status thing. So there's there's a bit of like value signaling where I work to be overly tech savvy. And sometimes it's the other side of like, really, this feels like this problem was already solved,
right? With
either no technology or existing technology. You guys are nuking it a little bit. So I see more of that. Like sometimes like there's a whiteboard right there. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Whiteboards are good.
Yeah, they work.
We haven't figured out how to be better than a whiteboard yet. I'm going to tell you we haven't. It's just not there. Because now that we're virtual, I could tell you we're not better than a whiteboard.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And even when people say like, pull up the virtual whiteboard, I mean, it delays and everything. And same way. I mean, I'm a whiteboard guy, and most of the time, if I got to think, I got to be writing or typing. But I mean, when I'm planning stuff and then when I helped out with football, I mean, it drove me nuts if guys wanted to talk theory. I'm like, just put it on the board, man. Give a visual, But yeah. I
can't see anything unless it's visual.
Well, right. I mean,
terrible.
Yeah. It's so funny. I know we're laughing, and that's probably good for you, but yeah, we had some good people that were forward leaning and got it, but it is astounding to me. And I'm like you, my first platoon was the first computer platoons. So I hit the SEAL teams. They had no computers, and it was, here you go, all you smart ensigns. And we worked it. I ran all the network and everything until we actually had an N6, before there was a comm team. Well, the comm team had satellites. They didn't have computers. And so we did all of that. And, and it was good. But, oh, my God, like when we went to like change over. Where's the overlay paper for the projector? I want to show our, and then there was Butcher Block, which I still prescribe a Butcher Block, but we
still use it.
Yeah, they were doing overhead lays like your teacher in the third grade, and then by the time my 20 years was up, everybody had a rudimentary skill set in computers and planning and stuff. And
did you go to SOMPM? Remember that special operations?
Yeah, it was a first class.
It was
Chris Beck taught it, bro.
Yeah, Auger.
Ah.
That's what I had. And
had
the all it was, this is a fascinating.
All it was PowerPoint briefs.
It was a Microsoft Office how-to users manual.
Yes.
For mostly Microsoft, some networking, and
Yes.
so basically special operations mission planning was learn
Microsoft Office tools.
Yeah, and learn the 96. Learn what are the functions of the 96-hour planning cycle.
Yes.
Learn. God, I'm forgetting the damn acronym. This is bad. SMEAC. There's SMEAC is one of them, but this was the situation mission. Yeah, SMEAC.
Yes.
So learn SMEAC, and then learn how to network your computers together.
Yes.
And then learn PowerPoint. And now you are a special operations mission planner.
Well, you didn't even have to learn PowerPoint, because what they did is they preloaded every single template, right, in the save file, and then every single picture to include little green stick figures. And then
this is your PLO, this is your warning order.
And so then you had the template, and God forbid somebody delete the template, right? Because it wasn't locked. And what's interesting, so the first thing was learn to network computers. We're calling it Panasonic Toughbooks. You can go buy those anywhere. Get Microsoft Office subscription. There was no encryption on them, I'm positive, at first. And then, of course there wasn't, because we networked them together. I'll tell you this.
Yeah, it was just wired.
Right. And then it was PowerPoint crazy. And back then we didn't have to write any real op reports. So nobody had thought about like templates for op reports. They designed those like 8 years into the war or something. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, they still had SODARs.
Right. Yeah, they had SODARs. Yeah. So, yeah, it was hilarious. And then I'll never forget, it was like system had been out 5 years. Somebody figured out how to animate like a plane flying in. Like dissolve. I mean, I'm telling you, that guy got a promotion. Like, whoever that was, right?
The achievement medal.
Yeah, but then it got out of control, and finally, thank God, one day we got back to quad slides. So good times. But you're right, the computer revolution, and
the war ended on quad slides.
Yeah.
Before that, I gave my first concept operations brief. Was 81 slides long.
Oh my God!
And the skipper, because I went hog wild, man. I knew how to do it, so I was going to do it. I was going to do all the slides. And so I gave it, and my skipper was like, "Hey, listen, after 45 minutes of slideology, and I was only about a third of the way through it, he's like, hey, don't bring any of your weapons on target. Just bring this brief, and
throw it at him.
Give it to him.
Yeah,
we'll win the war. They'll surrender right away.
Yeah,
war over.
Yeah." I'm not proud of it, but I mean, I got my PowerPoint ninja skills and all of that. I mean, that was a big part of officership, is understanding that stuff, given the turn. And
well, his feedback was it was so bad that they'd surrender and kill themselves.
Well, of course they would. And here's where I'm going with this is, so yeah, I got the patch like most people in our generation, went through all the schools, but it was like, because you were a new guy and because it was new, if you didn't learn it, it wasn't getting done. So it kind of fell on you. And so I took it serious, and I tried to learn it as best I could. And eventually, it just becomes the way. And of course it became an arms race then, like you said. In training, it was, well, they did 80, so we'll do 85 with different colors and all of that. But in the end of the day, it was just completely nutty. And
our imagery will be mensurated.
Yes. Oh God, I can tell you stories about, the best imagery in the world back then that now I look on Google Earth for. I mean, crazy, right? But everybody knows this that served in the military. And the old PowerPoint days, and now we've evolved. And with COVID, we are just VTCing and webbing on whatever platform. Go ahead. Keep telling stories.
The 550 cord, I had the mission info around your neck on a 550 cord. This was like, and I got on the boat, and as soon as we pulled away, it came untied, and all the cards floated away.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Before we even pushed out, and that mission actually went fine. And it's the last time I ever printed those out.
Yeah,
because I never looked at them once.
Yeah, but you had to have them.
Otherwise, you weren't prepared.
Exactly. I'm actually surprised you didn't turn the boat around and have to do an all stop to get that OPSEC, because pre-war, we three teams, we dove on San Diego Bay looking for a shape. Scotty, a shape is a rubber gun. It's a silhouette. It's a mold of an M16, M4, whatever you want to call it, and it's just there when we dive for weight, to simulate. And somebody lost a rubber dildo in San Diego Bay, and every SEAL team had to get online, and the boat teams, I'm sure, and we spent till it was found. No one's going home. Like, this was the pre-war. Like, don't tell me there's not jackassery out there. It was a good time. I wouldn't trade it, but it's so funny. And now today, I mean, it's so commonplace. And I appreciate having the systems and get a chat with old friends, new friends, all kinds of crazy stuff. We could go on and on, bro. Yeah, Sompy M. Well, because Scott said, do you know Chris Beck? And I go, well, he put me through the first ever computer course. And he said, well, we could have him on the podcast. I'm like, I take all comers. Like, is it strange to me? It absolutely is. Did he serve his country? He did. I mean, I don't care. I mean, like, it is what it is. Like, I mean, I run a podcast called The Dark Side of Elite. Like, there's some wacky shit out there. But I want to guide you to where I picked up your trail, obviously, all since last time we talked, and the world events have changed. So I was like, oh, God, he thinks so good about politics. But let's put politics on pause generally. I think we might get to it.
No problem at all for me.
Yeah.
On that one.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I would like to do it pretty regular when we get back to normal leading up to the election, because I find it fascinating, how much you know about history and can just regurgitate and it's accurate. And then the thoughts of basically something I don't put a lot of time in thinking about, but I enjoy hearing people that are educated. So let's put that on pause. We're in COVID-19, but I kind of picked you up as you joined the group, and I really loved your article on Don't Give Up the Ship, talking about leadership, which of course you're talking leaders, and there's politicians are quote unquote leaders. Loved it. Crisis and the platitudes of leadership. What spurned, I guess, the passion to throw that one out there?
So I had
on medium.com, by the way, audience.
It was part of it was the mental patterns of getting into like the social distancing immediately triggered, and I don't mean trigger like in the classic sense. It just got me thinking about those times in which things were in a version of crisis. And as we were going through in my day job, we were going through kind of this cascading. The world was changing in front of our eyes, and we were running as fast as we could to keep pace on it. Some of the people inherently did it well. Just like anywhere, some of the people, it was really, really a struggle from the beginning, and they caught up. But what it was for me was less about like, I'm so awesome at this, and more, this was very familiar. It was very familiar because in a narrow sense, like, we've never been under kind of a global common crisis like this. There is no like, yeah, this is old hat. But if you break it down below that, like there is smaller crises, and to the people involved in those crises, it's every bit as big as what we're going on right now, especially in the types of things we dealt with in the military. And so I thought about like the very first crisis I ever went through. I never had real crisis when I was a kid. I had a fine childhood. Everything was fine. Like,
well, that's why you're a fine lad.
Right. Like not everything was perfect. Everybody's got their problems, but like when 9/11 hit, it was for the first time in my life I was experiencing substantial crisis, and I was so bad at it. And so what triggered that article was like just reflecting on where I am now, and where I was when I started that, and then like what did I learn from, and who did I see, and what were the lessons that got me there. And it was kind of bucketed for me in three things: mentors, captains, and people who tell you the truth. And so if you spend time around those types of folks and you identify them and then you strive to be them, it's really helpful. If you don't, it's really hard, because that you don't really know what right looks like, and not everybody figures out it inherently on their own. I certainly didn't.
Oh, I'd be surprised, I guess, in the nature versus nurture. I'd be surprised if there's any human being that is like first time go around handles it, with passing colors. I don't know. They may be out there. But I thought it was, I still don't feel like I've handled any of those, moments great, meaning that to me, they just feel like you do the best you can and then you learn from them. And then I know I've talked with Jason and other guys that I respect. And I just feel like when it's all said and done, you've worked the problem. You don't want the crisis again, but you wish you could go back and do it again because you're so much better prepared, so to speak. But it's not because of you, like me. It was, again, much like you, it was because of the people that were truth talkers about it, whether they were peers or, in the case of the military, people underneath you. It was, other leaders that were doing it right. And then, your true leader, in your case at that time, it was the captain. I also loved, because I wasn't a ship guy, I loved, to me, you wrote about the skipper of a ship, a true ship, a Navy warship. Man, you put that in great words that I hope everybody reads that's interested in just the Navy. Because, I was a naval officer for 20 years, and I interacted with plenty of ship captains and, had plenty of skippers in SEAL team. There's a huge difference in the way that all works and has to work than what I experienced. And I thought you captured it excellent. Which means you had to have been shocked to death when you came to SEAL team. Not to say our stuff doesn't work, but ours is built for a specific purpose. And you wrote in a couple of paragraphs some stuff about command that was pretty cool.
So it's an extreme analog, and I appreciate the good feedback. But I think it is the captain of the ship. In a literal sense, is an extreme analog. And one of the interesting things I always think about is those guys get fired all the time. I think we just had a SEAL team skipper relieved within the last 6 months. Details not important, but that's the first time I've heard of that happening in theater. It happens in the Navy ship world, and not just because there's more ships, but it happens all the time. Those guys get canned all the time. One, because some of them aren't that good, but two, the amount of opportunity for something to happen that is considered a fireable offense to a skipper of a ship it's like every day 100 things happen that you can get fired for. And so it drives this crazy accountability. And I still to this day don't know. It's kind of like BUDS for me. I didn't go through BUDS. I'd like to think I can do it, but it's one of those things that you can't say you could do it until you did it, right? I don't know if I have the mental makeup to sit through what it takes for 2 years as a skipper on a ship. And I highlighted the things that would happen. The guy basically writes in a book every night, here's the things I want you to wake me up for. Here's the things I need you to accomplish tonight. Signs it formally, hands it to some 23, 24-year-old kid who just got qualified to drive the ship. And then he goes to bed. And then you wake him up 5 times a night. Yeah. And he answers the phone. And he goes, yeah, good. This is what I want to do. Or I'll be up. But the I'll be up is my favorite one. Because 8 seconds later, the dude's on the bridge.
Yeah.
And it happens every night forever. And it's just one of those things that I thought was watching the people who do that well. That's a different animal, man.
Well, yeah. And that's, I think, where I got really motivated. When you basically said, yeah, he gave the orders of the night and he's got to get some rest like everybody else. And then every time he answered the call and
one ring.
Yeah.
One ring. And never two.
And now that is not every single leader or every single skipper out there, as Sean has said, they get fired, but that was a good one to see. No doubt about it. And I talk about some of my mentors and things like that, the values, I guess, that I hope I'll always continue to strive for. It's awesome. Oh no, I'll tell you right now, I know for a fact, because there's an age factor to becoming a skipper. If I would have been a skipper anywhere, but let's just put me on that ship. I'm drunk down in my cabin, losing my mind, maybe sucking on a pistol, but I'd probably do the duty pretty darn good for the daytime. And then when I could go into the tin can and decompress, I would have been a disaster. Like, I'm just saying, given what went on in those years in my life. And so
I think you think you'd have been a surprise because there's not enough downtime. That's part of the thing. There's just not, like, those guys are never down.
Yeah,
They're
I mean, and there may be some of that. Like, I know for me, like, a lot of my issues stemmed from dealing with downtime as my career slowed down. I mean, you know, but just like Bud's, like, I'd like to think I could do good, but I never had that level of responsibility. So yeah, it was really cool to paint it in that light, because I think that does a lot for our Navy, our country, and not that billions of people will read your article, but they may. It was a really short version that was truthful, honest, and to the point. And I was like, I get it, because people would be like, well, you're Navy SEAL. And I'm like, no, I didn't share any of those type of experiences in a 20-year Navy career. And there you go. That's what it means. But you also wrote it talking about leadership in crisis. You know?
Yeah.
You probably don't write that if COVID doesn't happen.
Yeah. And that's I wrote one that went completely viral. Like, I think it's probably the second or third most traffic I've ever had on anything I've written for special needs parents. And that was the beginning of the journey of, like, I'm in crisis.
Right.
And I think one of the interesting things that like the writing helps with is it can come across like I'm a sage and I'm sitting here and let me spew the knowledge and information that I have to everybody else. What's actually happening is I'm writing about the best version of myself and reminding myself of what it's going to take to get through this.
Right.
In some sort of tutorial. It's a self-tutorial more than anything. And so it's interesting sometimes to get the feedback, like, you're so wise and you really got this locked down. I'm like, no, like, this is an entirely fictional person I'm writing about. And then I'm going to go press publish. And the fact that I've thrown that out into the wind is going to hold me a little bit accountable for the ideals that I kind of set out there.
I think Scott asked me over the last couple of weeks, he said, what's Sean's deal? Is it passion or is it decompressing? And I thought that was a pretty good insight for Scotty, who's never met you. And I said, well, I go, to me, it's probably both. And you kind of answered that. I mean, you no doubt have a passion for it, but when we sat down and talked before and I understood kind of your circumstances a lot better than I had in the past, I was like, oh no, that's a way to, like, check out for a second, get some things, just go into another world. And in a way, you're creating an accountability buddy for yourself, but you are putting out good things. And that's why I have the podcast. I mean, people think, oh, that's neat. Listen, you write, I talk. And a lot of times, if I'm not talking to somebody else, the talk I'm talking to myself is terrible. And so by experiencing other people's goods and bads and just sharing experience, it's just healthy for me. Like, in order for me to function at a pretty good state, like, I have to get it out and I have to just hear other people. And it's kind of like, you know, when you're feeling like crap, like, just go help somebody else, because then you're like, oh yeah, my shit's not that bad. And it's kind of why I pod, really deep down inside.
Yeah. So, I think that,
go
ahead, Scott. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to follow up.
You're the producer. You stay quiet.
I got a great question though.
Okay, go ahead.
Go.
No, I don't. I've lost. Like, it wasn't good. What I was going to say wasn't good. It was probably like, that's right, Jack.
For me to put out really good work, I've got to be in a creative headspace, right? Chaos is going on and you're just going. Like, you're pushing out more content. And I'm just really curious about that. Is it creativity?
So I was just trying to figure out this guy's name and I can't remember it because I won't get it right. Never mind. I won't even bring his name up.
We'll call him this guy.
Yeah, he's a Scandinavian writer. His name is Carl, of course.
With a K.
Yeah, and I can't remember his damn last name because it's a long one. And I only bring him up because it was an interview he did, and I actually put it in one of the Fatherhood 2.0 essays that he had to of his family life as separate from his writing life, and it was killing him, meaning that he viewed like he's going to go to some lighthouse in solitude and continue to write, because that's how he wrote before he had a family. And it just turns out like that was just his natural state. He was alone and he He didn't have people around him, and he could control his occupancy whenever he wanted to. And then when he got a family, he had this period of time where he felt like the family was getting in the way and it was problematic. And then he realized that like he just got past it and writes like right in the middle of the mess right now. And so like this, I didn't hear him and then learn from him. He accurately said the experience that I had with my family. We had 3 kids really close together. You know, autism's a part of it. I can't go off away from it for very long. I certainly can't do it to do something as entirely optional as writing. I know it's kind of non-optional from a mental health perspective, but in Maslow's hierarchy, it's not one of the things that I get to tell my wife, leave me alone, I'm doing. So I do it right in the middle of the mess. In fact, I don't write. I have this office right now. This is for work, like my job. I write right down in the kitchen, right in the middle of everything. And once that happened, kind of to take it back to your question, is it just gives me something to do. I don't sit and watch TV. And I don't say that like people who watch TV are wasting their life. I just don't. It's not like when I went away to the Naval Academy, we didn't have TVs, and then I was stationed on a ship. Like I just got out of that habit. And so the way I spend my leisure or recreational time is writing. And I write pretty much nonstop. A lot of it doesn't get published because it's not any good. I think the leadership one was funny, is it was up to like 2,400 words. And then when I edited it down to the actual message I wanted to do, it was down to 400.
Wow.
So there's 2,000 words that are like they're out in that stratosphere somewhere, and then it went back up to like 1,000 once I added on to what I wanted to do. But like I don't think of it so much as creative, and I've never thought of myself as particularly creative. It's processing patterns of thought and how to think about things. And I don't have very many original ideas, frankly. I write about things that are happening and how I'm thinking about them, which is entirely different than
it's your lens
a new idea.
On.
Yeah. And I'm okay. Like I one of the, like you're a media and marketing type person, and I've learned very quickly in the software world, we all think we're media and marketing and design people until you work with media, marketing, and design people and realize that they're not you. And they hit targets that you can't even see. And we're all comfortable with that. I no longer want to consider myself a creative, because I'm not.
Well, this whole year, like Scott and I tag along in the mornings mostly because every day I'm learning things I've had no idea existed in our world, were possible. And, but it's trying to then capture his expertise into the group team. Yeah, you're right. It's fascinating to me. Is it Carl Ove Nosgard?
Yes, sir. That is him. Thank you.
I figured if I went Carl Scandinavian author, I'd get close. Who knows if I pronounced that right? Because
and his books are something else, man. Like his one, I think the main thing that he has is like a 6-volume thing of a semi autobiographical, half fictional thing of his life, and it's like Ingmar Bergman, deep, crazy stuff. And like I figured if he could feel that way about writing around his family, why not me, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I think too, what I pick up is, again, once I dug back in, I'd seen some of the stuff you wrote over the years, but I wasn't tracking, and we talked about that already. But what I think is cool, and a lot of the people that, that I grew up around and that are out here that honestly just in the last couple of weeks are getting exposed to you is, you have this journey, from the East Coast to the Naval Academy to the United States Navy, kind of duality in what you did in the Navy. And then, this sector in Wall Street, and now what you do, and then the kids. But when you write what you're processing, as you say, you're very well read in history, and or you do the research too. And what you do is a little bit, because I worked with you and I feel like I know decently, your background, like you can look at intelligence, you can sift through things pretty quickly, I would have my pen out and be like, I need to highlight this line. And, you've already digested the whole point. and then repackage it so a knuckle dragger like me could understand it, or other guys, and that's why you were so valuable as one reason. There were many, but my point is you tie that all together almost in like a story where it's like, here's some historical facts and norms. Here's what I've experienced in my time on this planet, whether it be parenting, naval service, watching America politics. And then you tie that together, and then you tie this personal journey in it with raw emotion that you're actually, as you just said, you're living. And it's cool because I think it's really relatable. And that's why I love having you on, and the more I can talk, because, friends of mine that have some similar backgrounds, family-wise, I know have already reached out to you, and they're like, dude, yeah. I'm like, yeah, he's a regular guy, man. He'll give you the shirt off his back if he's got the time. He's just busy like the rest of us. But pretty interesting, I think. Keep at it.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know if I'd have the choice to stop right now anyway. It's just, it's especially since we can't do anything else.
Right.
It's pretty funny is that the productivity uptick has gone way up since we're locked inside. And it really highlights to me how much time I spend in service to actual movement.
Yeah.
Meaning that like now that there's no movement in my life, physical movement.
Yeah.
Actually movement. How much more time I actually have. And that sounds like a no shit. Like, of course, I didn't think it was to this extent. Like even at work, moving between meetings, like physically, is time. Somebody popping their head in to talk about some things you don't care about is time.
Yeah.
Like, all that's gone. It's all gone.
I knew when I met you, and I don't know if our female counterpart is out of the Navy yet or not, but former helicopter pilot, you know who I'm talking about?
She's out. Yeah, okay. I'm aware.
We're going to call her the Big A. I knew when I met you guys within about 2 weeks and saw a different type of command. I'm talking about Special Reconnaissance Team 1. That's the name now. I knew that when I got out of the Navy, I would take a go at small business and efficiency as best I could, because I saw technology and I saw inside the Navy what people who understood it and were efficient at it and could be watched but guided but left alone to do their craft, and then put it all together on a team to provide a product or to provide a service, if you will. And then just the people that were around there with the skipper as well. I was like, this is the way to go. Like, productivity is the main thing. Like efficiency. Like I didn't find it the rest of my time in the military. It actually got worse before I got out. But because I had seen it in that small, I'll just call it kind of baby, because it obviously wasn't the greatest. But I was like, that's what life's about. Like when you need to work, get in, get it done, efficient, excellent productivity, and then get back to life. And you're right, whether it's travel, whether it's coffee talk, whether it's this, like I can't deal with it anymore. Like it's got to be efficient. And the only way I can find it to be efficient is to have me and Scott and our little crew. And even that drives me nuts sometimes. You know? It'll be interesting to see what sticks after the flood waters go away and we're back into some normalcy. Like what sticks. Nothing fragile survives these rickety, these shocks. So I mean, everybody loves it right now because everything's in chaos. I've noticed the internet got slow because way more people are on it. I'm going to believe that even if it's not true, but it's just systems. It is true. And
it is true. So we run a work from home. Like my group is I work in an office, but the product I deliver is a virtual work from home service. And we're dealing with all kinds of real time things to get through that.
Yeah.
We've overcome it. Service providers have increased bandwidth. It's pretty interesting.
It's amazing how they can do that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Next article real quick, or because I know you've got to get going and we do. And we can always keep the fun going. Oh, the other thing too is the way you tie in things like Tyrion Lannister to real. It's good. I guess if you know who he is. We're stuck in the suck. And then you give 3 really good points to people that really shouldn't be required as it's crisis. Let's do these now. In my opinion, they should be everyday things. But nonetheless, I do agree with you. Is a good reminder. Where'd that come from? Besides the fact dealing with special needs kids in a crisis, which was obviously the impetus. But then you're like, oh, I'm going to expand it out, and here's what we can do. Because I share your vision on that.
So the dealing with the families and connecting with the families we do in our nonprofit, the Care for Us work, where we provide counseling to folks that are on the special needs journey. That was a good pitch, by the way. There's the long dwell strain that comes from just normal operations in the special needs world is it's a load. And what my mom passed about, it's now 14 years ago, and she had ALS. And there's a really weird connection to I watched my stepfather, who cared for her. He pretty much burned down after about 2 or 3 years until she finally passed, but he was a mess near the end of it. And then when the early phases of Aiden's diagnosis, and then engaging with the families, it was a really, really similar experience. And it's really the same thing. It's acute caretaking and extended duration. And so there's a guy named BJ Miller who ran this group called Zen Hospice. And all he did was long-term palliative care. And I heard him on a podcast. I heard him on Tim Ferriss' podcast. And I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'm dealing with families, special needs kids. And it struck me, based on my experience with my mom, that they're really similar things. Like, so what advice would you give me to give to the people we're dealing with? And he gave me a couple of good things, but the one thing that endures in one of the 3 things I put in that essay is, like, you have to view what you're doing to whoever you're taking care of as service. And I didn't write this part in it, and this will resonate, Jack, as a team guy, like, view it as something that can be done well, and you will do it well. And your energy will be put towards doing it well. Yeah. And that's the version of, like, hey, view the care you're providing your children as a service, and you'll do it well. That's kind of the core of what it is. The other things were more kind of additive onto that. So I think the first thing is coming to grips with where you are is really, really important. And once you're there, the key of understanding that it's a service, you can help others. I'm going to blank on the other 2. This is funny.
No, it's just it resonates with a lot of things we've experienced. And besides, think of it like service, which is kind of like a call to action. I totally agree. And I try to think about parenting that way. Like, yes, I love them, but sometimes I have to snap into, it's a service, because I treat things different that way, right? I'm going to go attack it. But, the other thing where every moment's a moment, right? It's just, every moment, like, be in that, accept where you're at, and the next one, and the next one. And then, gratitude and gratefulness, all those things. And that's what the
gratitude thing is me and Matt. Yeah. So the one day at a time thing is you probably, this is probably a Bud's trick that you learned. And for me, it was a ship trick and a couple other things. Like, if you look at the mountain from the base, you'll never get there, man. It's just not going to work. You can't. And all the platitudes people give you around taking it one day at a time, and the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. Yeah. Like, they're all really good inputs, because you can't look at the world any other way. You have to see anything. And the other thing that, if you see everything one day at a time, and the other, like, really, really harmful thing in special needs parenting is going, my God, this is my life for the next 50 years.
Right. Looking too far ahead.
Minute you do that, like, you can't, that load is too big. And the other thing is, like, the gratitude part. So the 3 things were: be grateful, take things one day at a time, and
service,
and serve others. Right. The gratitude, it is near the thing you're trying to get away from is bitterness. Sadness is natural. Anger is natural. It comes, feel it, deal with it. If you leave it all in place, or you ignore it and you don't address it, kind of the scaffolding that builds around you is bitterness, right? And you get kind of frozen in something that looks like I'm permanently angry, permanently sad, and I'm wallowing in the unfairness of it all.
Yeah.
And the bitterness is the one you want to avoid. And there's a funny thing: gratitude and bitterness really struggle to occupy the same space,
to coexist
at the same time. Like it's just hard. They're mutually exclusive thought patterns.
Yeah.
So if you force gratitude in there, force it every day.
Yeah.
At the beginning, force it as many times as you can, and it keeps the bitterness away. And that's like there's not a lot of secret there. Where the source code in our brain is designed to work that way. There's a reason that the Christian faith is really, really aligned to that.
Yeah.
serve others and be grateful. And it's like, my God, it works.
Well, if I used to say all the time, and I still try to live by it. It's real simple. Just, be nice to people and treat others like you'd like to be treated, and you can go far in life. I know you got to get going. I believe so here in 2 minutes, but, God, it's always a joy. But you're right. I mean, if there's one thing from service I could give to young people, it's always 1 inch at a time, man. Like we all want to be outcome focused. We all want to get there or somewhere, but it's like the people I've seen they're successful, how I accomplished what I've accomplished and what I'm trying to accomplish now. It's 1 inch at a time. It's in the moment. And then the other thing, because, we discussed kind of my special needs kid, was I was getting bitter. It's about 4 months back, getting in that, just a lot of frustration. And I went down, I was helping a basketball team. And during practice, one of the coaches was off to the side. So I sat down next to him and we were having a good talk. And he said, "Yeah, you never bring your kids around." And I said, "Well, my one." And I told him, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, my nephew." Same way on the opposite, which is, I have social and introvert hardcore and then blurting. He has extreme extrovert. So he pulls out his phone and he has like 52 texts from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. last night. How do you think you guys are going to do in the game tomorrow? How do you think you're going to do? Is so-and-so okay? Blah, 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 blah. And he goes, "This is every night." And I said, "Wow." I go, "Yeah." So mine's the opposite of that. And I go, "He'd love to come here, but he'd feel so awkward that he'd go up in the highest bleachers just to watch practice. And, where no more kids would want to be down there." And he looks at me and he goes, "You know what though, Jack?" And I was like, "No." He could probably sense a bitterness in my voice. He goes, "You've got that because God knows you can handle it." He goes, "You get those things because you can rise to the challenge and you can handle it." And I was like, it was like call to action. I was like, yeah, because you love your kids. You love the people that are your friends and your close-knit community. And at times, though, you let bitterness creep in, hopefully not to action. But it's difficult if you're grateful and if you're of service that you can't get through damn near everything. And that's what we proved in our careers in that job. But more now than everything, everybody's got to really pay attention to that. And we'll get through this too. I know that. There's a billion other questions, but we'll have to do it another time.
Yeah, we'll get it. And once you get past the cynicism, my big hurdle is I needed to get past the cynicism, even with faith and other things. Like I'm so, in my mind, I'm so smart. I know everything and I know this is all bullshit.
You're in the Matrix.
Right. And like, well, maybe just for a second, put it down and go through the motions. And you got to say it before you see it. And then you got to see it for a while before you believe it. And like, yeah, that's true. And I don't maybe it is all bullshit. Works. What do you care?
Well, and the good thing is it doesn't really matter. If it works for you, it works. And that's what we all need to find. And hey, trust me, I know it works because somebody's been looking out for me for a long time, and I don't even ask questions about it anymore where I used to. So I'm like, none of this makes sense. But you know what? I'm here. I'm going to serve. I'm going to try to be grateful and help others get through things and hopefully make the world a better place. If not, I'll keep talking, which will keep me from burning the world down.
It helps. Same with writing. This is fun, man.
That's it. That's this edition of The Dark Side of Elite, powered by Performance Mountain. Stay classy, Nebraska. Stay calm, America.